Well, listen, folks, I do have Mike Zullo on with me in this particular segment, and most of the listeners to Freedom Friday know exactly who Mike Zullo is. He is the lead investigator of the cold case posse and has been for several years in the Obama fraud case and the Obama fraud investigation coming right out of the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office, Sheriff Joe Arpaio, who just recently endorsed Donald Trump. A lot of that had to do with the Freedom Friday audience and the PNN network and ppsimmons, and of course we've already talked about all of that. But I'm having Mike on today. Now, Mike. First of all, Mike, are you there? Are you on with us?
Yeah, I'm here, Carl.
Okay, good. And you're coming out of Arizona, I presume, huh?
Still in Arizona.
Okay, all right, good. Well, I know you're all over the place all the time, so I was just trying to get a pinpoint on you. And, it doesn't hurt you. If you've got a cell phone in your back pocket, the NSA knows where you are. So, I mean, what
Thanks,
difference?
brother.
What difference does it make if our audience knows where you are? Arizona's a big state. Anyway,
I don't even put the shades down anymore.
I know, me either, brother. But anyway, folks, Mike is not. I didn't ask Mike Zullo to come on the show to talk about the Obama fraud investigation right now because he just can't right now because of the pending court decision. As you all know, we've reported on this extensively. That of course he was a witness in the Melendrez case against Sheriff Arpaio. And not only that, but Mike Zullo himself has a motion before an appeals court about his part in that and the possibility of his rights being violated. So that's all still, kind of a tangled mess, and they're expecting some decisions on those cases soon. So until those decisions are handed down, Mike just cannot speak about those court cases in depth, nor the Obama fraud investigation. However, I have reported that I was in Sheriff Arpaio's office for close to 2 hours, I guess a good hour and 40 minutes or so. Mike Zullo arranged that while I was there in Phoenix last week, and so Mike Zullo and I were there, and Sheriff Arpaio told me that, with permission to release, that he is still eyeball deep in this investigation, and I'm just going to share this little tidbit, and this is all I can say, but based upon everything he told me and the look in his eye and the timbre of his voice, he's chomping at the bit to get out there before the public and to have a press conference on this. But, there's some legal loopholes, and everybody knows what a lot of those are with the court cases, et cetera. But anyway, he wanted me to assure the audience that he's still in this and is planning on releasing the information just as soon as he can. Did I say that correctly, Mike Zullo?
Yeah, that's about the size of it at this point, Carl.
Yeah, well, thanks for getting me into the sheriff's office, and I enjoyed that time with you guys. That was great. But
you're welcome.
Well, listen, but I had you on the show today, Mike, because right in the middle of this presidential campaign, I mean, how surreal is this, Mike, that you've been investigating Obama's natural-born citizen status and mainly the veracity of the birth certificate, which appears to be a fraudulent document. But in the investigation of that and understanding and immersing yourself into the history of natural-born citizen and what all that means, isn't it surreal that in the middle of this presidential election, this whole issue comes up again, but nobody in the media drops Obama's name in the middle of it. Now it's Cruz and Rubio, and they're holding Cruz and Rubio to standards that they will not hold Barack Obama to.
Well, that's absolutely true. And our reason for looking into natural born had nothing to do with really looking into natural born to decide what side of the argument is true and what isn't. Ours was going to motive.
Right.
We needed to understand the motive under the birth certificate investigation to make a determination as to, is there any relevance? Why would someone do this?
Right.
And as this has been transpiring now, it's been extremely disturbing to me. And I actually caught your broadcast last week where you had Rafael Cruz on and you brought up this subject.
Yeah.
And I was really taken back.
Me too.
For all intents and purposes, and obviously I'm not an attorney. There's all these legal scholars out there, but God gave me the ability to read and comprehend. And in looking into this natural-born citizen clause, it is really, really apparent to me that Mr. Cruz's position is extremely, extremely weak on this notion that his son qualifies.
Right.
as a natural-born citizen able to run for the presidency of the United States.
Well, give us your reason why. I mean, I agree with you, but I mean, people want to hear you. So tell us what you know, what you've discovered, and why you think that Ted Cruz is not eligible to run as president.
When you start to research this out, and I'm not talking about going on the internet and reading what other, when you go to research this out, you come to a conclusion that the natural-born citizen clause really did derive itself from English common law. Mm-hmm. Goes back to like the 1400s. Mm-hmm. And as you trail this progression as it makes its way over into the United States Constitution, you can't come to any other conclusion that natural born was a modifier in a sense, that adjective natural was put there as a designator to set, for, and I really hate to say it like this, but to set a class of persons above another level of citizenship.
Yeah, for the office of
president.
president.
And I don't know anyway, it sounds so politically incorrect to say that, but that actually is the truth.
No, it is. And number one, we don't worry about political correctness. And number two, it's the truth. And number three, the reason they wanted that class of person just a little bit above the rest is to protect the nation. Tell the folks about that.
Well, they really did. The whole idea of natural-born citizen goes to two allegiances in one sense. In other words, you have an allegiance to this country because you were born on the soil mm-hmm. of this country. Mm-hmm. And your second allegiance to this country comes through the passing of your citizenship through blood of your parental lineage. Mm-hmm. And it has everything to do with allegiance. And what they were trying to do is they were trying to encapsulate the office of the presidency to be held by only an individual who was protected through the allegiance of being born on the soil and had allegiance by blood, citizen parents.
Right.
That's what they were trying to accomplish. And then as time goes on, this gets all convoluted. But as you're looking at this and realizing that the word natural is like a limiting qualifier and indicates that only some persons are able to hold this office, you start to go into letters that were written like John Jay, and this is, people know this. John Jay in 1787, he writes George Washington before they completed the final draft of the Constitution, and they came right out. He comes right out and he says to him, and I'm going to paraphrase, he says something to the effect of, permit me to hint whether it is wise and feasible to provide a strong check to the admission of foreigners into the administration of our national government. Mm-hmm. And he goes on to say that he declares that expressly that the commander-in-chief of the American Army should be only a natural-born citizen.
Right.
Now, I don't know what other evidence you need to come to the conclusion that there is something set apart. There's a difference here because the first drafting, it only said citizen.
Right.
Now he puts in natural-born.
Right.
So there's something, there that people cannot just turn their head from or can't get all conflated with all these different arguments of people that have other agendas for this nation.
Right. And, Mike, you go ahead. I thought you finished. Go ahead.
No, then you can go even further. And you can go even further that James Madison himself it's of record that he made it very clear in 1789 that the U.S. used the place of birth rather than just parentage as far as what natural-born citizen meant. So now we're talking about the right of the soil. And then going further, you have this statute that Mr. Cruz relied on, the U.S. statute of 1790. And that provided, and in that statute, in its original context, that children of citizens of the United States mm-hmm. that were born abroad shall be considered natural-born citizens. That is exactly what it said. Mm-hmm. However, and this is what Mr. Cruz didn't say, that act was reconsidered a few years later, mm-hmm. and it was Madison himself who pointed out that Congress only had the authority to naturalize aliens and not U.S. citizens.
Right.
And what he wanted and what was done was a bill that amended the statute to eliminate the words natural born and simply state that children of citizens of the United States born abroad shall be considered as citizen.
Exactly. And there's
so he himself removed it.
Yes, absolutely. And I just want to really emphasize this for our listeners, and most of them get it, but some are still struggling. There is a difference, Mike Zullo, as you know, between a legal citizen, and Cruz is, and Rubio is. There's a difference between being a legal citizen and being a natural-born citizen. And there's the difference. Because people are saying, well, Cruz is a legal citizen. He should be able to run for president. I know he's legal, but he's not natural-born. And there's the difference.
Well, he's not. And, Carl, it's so disingenuous because the production of the document is a Canadian birth certificate. Mm-hmm. And I find it extremely insulting to my intelligence that this man, who is extremely bright, brilliant, as he's been called, had to produce a birth certificate when he was taking the bar exam. After going through Harvard, it didn't occur to him back then that he might be a Canadian citizen?
Yeah.
I have a hard time with that.
Right.
I mean, that just defies logic.
Right. Yeah, so he's born on Canadian soil. He has a Canadian birth certificate. Of course, he's born to a mother who is an American citizen. But then he holds dual citizenship right up to the time he runs for president. His father was a citizen of Cuba when he was born, yet he has the audacity to stand before the American public and quote out of context laws from the 1700s to proclaim that somehow he's eligible to run for president. It just blows me away. Yeah.
It's amazing to me. And this guy, everybody's a constitutionalist. Everybody knows the Constitution. Well, what do you really know about the Constitution? Because they point to the 14th Amendment.
Yeah.
Where John Bingham drafted the 14th Amendment, the language of the 14th Amendment. And in the debates, it's recorded. This is the one that really tipped it for me. It was ratified in 1868. The debates that preceded it. He says, I find no fault with the introductory clause, which is simply a declaratory statement of what is written in the Constitution, that every human being born within the jurisdiction of the United States of parents not owing allegiance to any foreign sovereignty is, in the language of your Constitution itself, a natural-born citizen.
Right.
So now we go from the 1300s up to the mid or latter 1800s, and it seems to me everybody knew what this meant.
Sure they did. Yeah, exactly. That's I'm convinced that's why the Constitution doesn't say, now here's what it means to be natural born. They all knew.
They all knew. And at this point, after living what you and I have lived through, going through this investigation, I don't want to see anybody else sitting in that White House that has this hanging over their head.
Exactly.
And I have to be, completely candid with you. Donald Trump is right.
Yep.
This is an issue.
I agree.
This is going to be brought up. If Mr. Cruz is the nominee, you can take it to the bank that the Democratic side of this aisle, they're going to shove this down the court's throat.
Yes.
And I'm going to tell you something, and I am a lifelong Republican, more power to them to do it.
Yeah. No, I agree. And you and I have said all along that we were going to be politically integrity-filled in this matter, that even if a Republican runs who's not qualified, we would jump all over it, and that's what we're doing today. Messianic Rabbi Zev Porat, very good friend of mine, messiahofisraelministries.org. Go over there and check out the amazing work he's doing around the world, but particularly in Israel. And my good friend Mike Zullo, coming to us out of Arizona today, the lead investigator of the cold case posse, Obama fraud case, Sheriff Joe Arpaio, Maricopa County Sheriff's Office. Mike Zullo, it's good to have you with us today. So we were talking about this hypocrisy that's ripping our nation apart concerning natural-born citizen status. And see, I was thinking, Mike, this is why I was going to say you and I, but you and Arpaio mainly, it's why it's so important what you guys have been doing with the Obama thing. And I know you're focusing on the legality and the authenticity of the document that was placed up there, but still, it still eventually all goes to this definition of natural-born citizens. And because Congress didn't deal with it, the courts didn't deal with it, the media didn't deal with it, here we are again. And now we've got two Republican candidates who are not qualified, and nobody's dealing with it. We're in a big old mess, and you and I have been saying for years that we would deal with it with Republicans as well, and here's proof of it today, Mike.
Well, that's true, Carl, and it's appalling to me how people are going to stand on that stage and pretend it doesn't matter and it doesn't affect them.
I know.
And they're going to give interviews as if it doesn't affect them. I mean, you have to really sit back a minute and take a look at this. And something that's really striking me, and you'll remember this when we had the discussions on your show, when I told you that we were supposed to go on Fox News and we were shut down. It's a media blackout.
Yeah.
Well, I think the true colors are coming. And, there's some indications out there now that Rupert Murdoch is basically an open borders kind of guy.
Yeah, I've been reading that.
And believes on this open border philosophy and that this whole citizen of the world thing. Mm-hmm. There is something really going on, a battle for the heart and soul of this nation. And the one thing that really sickens me is I don't want to see people in my party going up there and trying to pull a ruse on us. We've just gone through 7 years of that.
Right. And how we have found out and discovered that presidential elections matter, and natural-born citizenship status matters. Allegiances matter. These, our founding fathers couldn't have envisioned the nuclear age. But now you're the commander-in-chief of the number one superpower in the world with your finger on the red button.
Hey, you know what? If we continue going the way we're going, we're not going to be having these discussions anymore because they won't permit it.
Oh, I know.
They'll shut these things down.
Oh, yeah, that's why they're terrified of Donald Trump. Go ahead.
Well, then that was the point. They're taking a look at Donald Trump right now. They can't understand why his momentum is so great because people are getting smart. They're starting to realize the status quo isn't working. They're realizing that we're being limited. We're being told what to think. And, just to interject, the whole Obama certificate issue is a serving up of a narrative that they're expecting everyone to swallow.
Yes.
Well, this is no different now on the natural-born side of it. The Republican candidates are serving up a narrative declaring that they're all constitutionally protected to run for president of the United States when they're clearly not.
Right.
And this is deception that we have to digest and churn over.
Yeah.
It's really a very disingenuous approach. And if Mr. Cruz really believes that his power to argue in front of the Supreme Court is as strong as everyone wants to tell us it is, he should be going there himself, getting himself declared eligible.
Exactly, and that's what Donald Trump suggested to him. And, as bad as the Ted Cruz things look, Marco Rubio, and I've been saying this for weeks now, I've been calling him an anchor baby. Now today, Trump comes out and calls him an anchor baby. I called him an anchor baby when Ted Cruz's father was on my show last week saying that he thought that Marco Rubio was qualified. And he kept screaming, he's a legal citizen, he's a legal citizen. I said, I know he's a legal citizen because he's an anchor baby, but he's not natural born. What say you, Mike Zullo?
I agree with you. It's no different than my mother and father. If my grandparents that came over here from Italy weren't naturalized, my father would still have been an American citizen born here, but never, quote, a natural-born citizen. He would never have had the right to run for the highest office of the land. Not that he did, but he never would have had that right.
Right.
And there again is the qualifier. Marco Rubio's parents both, well, he may have been born here. He was not the child or the offspring of people that had allegiance to this country.
Yeah,
their allegiance was somewhere else at that time.
Both of his parents were citizens of Cuba at the time he was born in Florida. So he's a legal citizen, but he's an anchor baby.
Yes.
Yeah, he's not natural born. Hey, Mike, you know what? As always, time is up. I mean, we've got to get out of here. I know, Mike. It goes by so quickly. I'd love to have you back on. We can continue this discussion and go further. Maybe next time I'll have you on here in a few weeks and we can take callers because I know some people disagree with us, and I'd love to be able to address that.
Yeah, that would be great, Carl.
Okay, good. And if they want to be wrong, that's okay with you, right?
I won't go that far, brother. I have enough.